guys, in for 700 total, out for 589 for a $111 loss. Finished eating dinner at Not Your Daddy, which helped. Gonna try to get through the hands here because there aren't a ton of them. First interesting hand, we're playing only 5-handed. We were at a new table, but not everyone showed up, and the 6th player left, so we were only playing 5-handed. The hijack limps, I raise ace-8 offsuit in the cutoff, and the small blind in the hijack call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop, which comes 10-9-3, 2 clubs. Action checks to me, and I think I should be checking here most of the time. I decided to take a stab at it, and I bet $15 and only the small blind calls. Turn is the 6 of diamonds, giving us a gut shot. Small blind checks to me again, and I decide I'm gonna double barrel here. So I bet 40 and the small blind calls once again. The river is the 7 of clubs, which completes our gut shot, but also puts a 3rd club on the board. This time my opponent leads out into me for $65. I decide to make the call, and he turns over ace-6 of clubs for the nut flush. So we lose a pretty big one early. In this next hand, there are 2 limps. I raise pocket 6s in the cutoff to $8. 4 people call, so 5 ways to a flop, which comes 4, 10, 6, 2 spades. So we flop middle set, small blind checks, and the big blind bets $20. Action folds to me, so I make it 65. Action folds back to the big blind, and he doesn't have much left, so he shoves for $122 total. I snap call, of course. Turn is a bad card, it's a 9 of spades, and river is the 7 of clubs, and the big blind shows jack 10 of spades. So we flop top pair and a flush draw, and then he got there on the turn, so our middle set does not hold. Have a set. In this next hand, we're in the cutoff with ace-9 of clubs. The under the gun +1 player raises to $10. There's 1 call, and I call as well, so 3 ways to a flop, which comes Queen Jack 3, 2 clubs. The original raiser continues for $20. The other player folds. Turn is a 9 of spades, bringing a 2nd flush draw on the board and giving us bottom pair. My opponent doesn't have much left and shoves for what ends up being $49 total. Once I pick up some equity on the turn, I called, and he turns over pocket aces right away. The river does not bring any help, and we lose another one very early in the session. Eventually I move tables though, and then finally I pick up pocket 10s on the button, and the under the gun player, he raises to 12. The cutoff makes a call, and now action is on me. I hadn't seen the under the gun player play any hands since sitting down at the new table, and I decide to just flat here. The small blind and the big blind call as well, so we're actually going 5 ways to a flop here, which comes 7-5-3, 2 clubs. Small blind checks, and the big blind donk bets $15. The original raiser folds. The cutoff makes a call, and pretty certain I have the best hand here. And again, as I've mentioned in previous vlogs, in my experience, when players bet this small, they usually have a pretty mediocre hand, or they're trying to draw cheaply or see a cheap showdown. So I'm not gonna let him get away with it, and I raise to $75. The small blind folds, the big blind folds, and the cutoff thinks for a very long time and then says, okay, let's go, and then shoves for not much more. I think it was under $100. So I'm obviously snap calling here, and this guy had been caught bluffing with a pair of 4s on like an ace king 10 something board. So board runs out 7 of spades, jack of spades. He turns over pocket 6s. So we finally take one down. This next hand's a pretty interesting one. Sorry, it's really hot, that's why I had to open the door. I look down at 10-9 of clubs and under the gun and open it to $12. The cutoff and the small blind call, so 3 ways to a flop, which comes jack 5-4, 2 hearts. Small blind checks, and I decide to c-bet here, $15. Only the small blind makes the call, so we're going heads up to a turn card, which is the king of spades. Small blind checks to me again, and I'm gonna keep barreling here, especially on this turn card. So this time I make it $35, and my opponent calls once again. River is a blank, so the flush draw misses. I think I have a very strong range advantage here. I'm not blocking hearts, and I'm gonna just continue putting on the pressure here. So I decide to shove. My opponent only has about 140 left, so I put him all in, and he instantly folds 7-6 of hearts face up. So he flopped the world and didn't end up getting there, so we take this one down, and turns out we actually had the best hand. So this is the last interesting hand of the session. I have king 10 offsuit on the button. There are a few limps. I raise to 12, and 3 people call. So 4 ways to a flop, which comes 5 king 10, 2 spades. So we flop top 2 pair. Action checks to me, and I bet $25. The under the gun player raises to $50. Action folds to me, and I think about raising here. I think he started the hand with maybe like 200, 250, something like that. I just decide to flat. So we're going heads up to a turn card, which is the queen of spades. My opponent bets $50 once again. Obviously I'm gonna call here, so that's what I do. River is the queen of clubs, and this time my opponent slows down and checks it over to me. My opponent had maybe 75-ish behind or something like that. Our 2 pair does get counterfeited, so we now have kings and queens with a 10 kicker. And I think just in general, this player was playing very straightforward, and if he had a very strong value hand, he's not going to check all of a sudden to trap. So I just decided to shove here. It might be overplaying my hand a bit and might be a little bit too thin for value, but the other reason I'm betting here is because we can potentially get him to fold a chop. I just don't think he's going to have a better hand here and then check it over to us just based on the player type. So I decided to go for it here. He goes into the tank and eventually folds. That was the last interesting hand of the session. After that, just went to Nacho Daddy and gonna head back to the Airbnb now because my camera is overheating and so am I. Alright guys, back in the air. Oh shoot, almost forgot my key. That would have been bad. Probably we'll do a breakdown of the session tomorrow, and for now, I'm just gonna get ready for bed. So see you tomorrow before we go home. Good morning guys, it's the morning of the day we leave. Gonna go to the Modern Vegan again to get some food, but before we end the trip officially, just want to give a big shout out to everyone who interacted with me through social media while I was on the trip and watched the story and gave me encouragement and hand advice and feedback. Really helped me improve and figure out a lot of things that I was doing wrong. So just gonna wrap up the stats for the trip. Played a total of 13 sessions, won 8 of them, lost 5, played for a total of 49 hours, and I made $911 for the trip, which means an hourly rate of $18.47. Had a lot of awesome food, met a few really cool people, and gonna go eat right now and head home. And until next vlog guys, thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the Vegas trip, and I will see you in the next vlog. That stupid party talk